We enter the barn in the peaceful sunlight of a Sunday afternoon. It's piled with new hay that looks like a mountain slope. However, when we see Lennie in the barn, we notice that he is petting a dead puppy. Eek! That's right, a dead animal. At first, he hides the puppy in the hay so George won't find it. Lennie's plan of tending rabbits on their ranch may never happen if George knows about the puppy. Is your heart sinking by now? Perhaps you've guessed what's happened. Lennie has literally killed his pet with kindness. He can't tell how much stroking is too much. Poor Lennie. Someone enters the room, but it's not George. It's Curley's wife again. Don't you wish we knew her name? Curley's wife tells Lennie that she's awful lonely and would like to talk. But Lennie's scared to talk to Curley's wife because George told him not to. Hey team, just a reminder, if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel out, and our next upload could be on something taught in your next class. Thanks, and back to the video. Curley's wife is outraged when Lennie tells her this, although she knows Curley gets jealous if she talks to other men. It's a tough life being the only woman on the ranch. But she's kind to Lennie about the dog and says that he can get another one easy. Just like crooks, Curley's wife wants to tell Lennie all about herself. This sure is a ranch full of lonesome souls. She grew up in Salinas, but she's always had her mind set on bigger things. Why, she could have been in the movies once. Talk about lost potential. No wonder Curley's wife feels discontented and wishes she was somewhere more exciting. She married Curley to get away from her hometown, but this backfired because Curley ain't a nice fella. Lennie doesn't react to her story, but he tells her about his dream of tending to his own rabbits. Curley's wife can relate to how nice it is to feel soft things. She spends a lot of time brushing her own soft hair and tells Lennie he can stroke it. She thinks Lennie is sweet, harmless, and just like a big baby. It sounds like a nice moment, but as usual, Lennie doesn't know when to stop stroking. Curley's wife becomes alarmed and tells Lennie to let go. When she struggles, Lennie panics, clasping his hand over her face to silence her. He doesn't want to get into trouble with George. Curley's wife is now terrified, and for good reason. Lennie doesn't know his own strength. Lennie shakes her until her body flops like a fish. Oh no, she's dead. Lennie leaves her body lying in the barn beside the dead puppy. In death, her face looks sweet and young again. She's lost all her ache for attention and all her sad longing for something more. At that moment, she is peaceful. Once Lennie realises that he's done a real bad thing, his first thought is to escape. George once told him to run away and hide in the bushes if ever there was trouble. So he tucks the dead puppy under his coat and skedaddles out of the barn and away from the ranch. Candy is the first one to find Curley's wife. He doesn't know what's happened at first, but as soon as he realises, he goes to tell George immediately. George hopes that Lennie won't suffer for what he's done, but old Candy is more realistic. Around here, it's rough justice all the way. Knowing Curley, the only thing that will satisfy him is if Lennie dies for what he's done. The other men burst into the room, and Slim inspects the body. Curley is enraged and knows immediately who's to blame for his wife's death. Carlson goes off to find his gun to help Curley and finds that it's been stolen. Slim sighs and knows that Lennie will be punished soon. Curley is hell-bent on shooting Lennie and won't hear George's excuses. Is there any chance at all that Lennie might get a fair trial? The scene shifts to the Salinas River, surrounded by the majestic Gabilan Mountains. It's a similar setting to where we first met Lennie and George at the beginning of their story. We see a heron bird eating a water snake as the water ripples in the wind. Lennie appears. He's waiting for George to find him. In Lennie's mind, he imagines his Aunt Clara telling him off for causing George so much trouble. Lennie knows he's broken something that he will never be able to fix. When he sees a rabbit, Lennie imagines it is talking to him. The rabbit tells Lennie that George will never let him tend to any rabbits anymore. He has come to a realization. The dream is over. Then George appears and sits beside Lennie. The friends are together again. However, Lennie doesn't know that George has stolen Carlson's Luger pistol. He's got a job to do, and it won't be pleasant. Lennie expects George to tell him off, but George seems quiet and thoughtful. Lennie offers to run off into the hills, but George tells him to stay. There's a peaceful moment between the two friends. Just as he has done many times before, George tells Lennie the comforting story of their dream. When George asks Lennie to take off his hat and look across the river, Lennie obeys. George raises the pistol, pointing it at the back of Lennie's head. But George's hand shakes violently, so he lowers it again. They can hear voices across the river. The men are coming for Lennie. There's no way to leave now. George keeps on telling Lennie about the rabbits. He reassures his friend that he's not mad at him and that there ain't gonna be no more trouble. George hasn't got much time. If he doesn't show mercy to Lennie, no one will. How else can he protect his friend in this cruel world? As the mob of men draw closer, George raises Carlson's gun and Lennie never feels a thing. His body slumps onto the sand. When the other men arrive on the scene, Curley sees Lennie's gunshot wound. Slim sits close to George and tries to say comforting things. Carlson wonders what happened. Was it Lennie who stole his Luger gun? Did George somehow take the gun from Lennie and shoot him? George doesn't contradict Carlson's story. Then Slim kindly takes George away to get a drink. The other men gaze after them as they leave. Gosh, what an ending! Is Steinbeck perhaps saying, sometimes you must be cruel to be kind? Maybe he's just encouraging us to think twice before condemning people who do extreme things. After all, it's hard to know what's right and wrong in a world where cruelty is the norm. What would you have done in George's place? We hope you enjoyed this Schooling Online production. For more easy lessons, check out our other videos.